Hey, what's going on, guys? The Horror Man back with a controversial view of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Quick disclaimer before I start this one. This is meant to be a respectful, mature conversation. Controversial view is an opportunity to discuss certain controversial topics. I mean absolutely no offense to anyone, and if someone does take anything I say offensive, I truly apologize. It's certainly not my intention. With this month's theme for Monthly Theme Thursday being Final Guy July, Jason and I have decided to cover a movie for controversial view we've been wanting to discuss in this series for a while. Not only did I love that Freddy's Revenge had a final guy, but I also love the look of Freddy in this sequel. It's probably my favorite look of the horror legend. The nightmare sequences are awesome and the kills are cool. The pool party scene is one of my favorites in the entire franchise. Then there's the fact that Freddy is still scary in this one. This is before he got too campy or too silly. Freddy's Revenge also features one of my favorite openings with the school bus, and ending as well, I suppose. I love the practical effects and the expansion of the lore. I think this follow-up has an awesome story. And in my opinion, Freddy's Revenge is the all-around most rewatchable of the Elm Street films. I definitely have a lot of nostalgia for this one. Jason and I will be ranking the Elm Street franchise soon though, so I won't say any more. After all, this isn't a review, it's a C-view. A controversial view. Released in 1985, a year after the original, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, is a controversial sequel. It's infamous for being, and I quote, the gayest horror film of all time. But let's be honest, what does that even mean? Yes, Mark Patton, who played Jesse Walsh, the main protagonist, or final guy, in Elm Street 2, is an openly gay man. Back when he filmed this movie, however, he had not yet come out. He claimed the role of Jesse was not written as a gay character, and even director Jack Sholder admitted he was unaware of any gay subtext in the film. David Chaskin, who wrote it, also denied it for decades. It wasn't until long after many started calling this the gayest horror film of all time that David Chaskin claims that was always the intention. The timing, to me, seems a bit convenient. Others in the cast and crew also claimed they were unaware of such themes. They believed it all just came to the forefront unintentionally, based on some creative decisions made by the director. The same director who definitively stated he was unaware of any gay subtext. Also, long after this sequel gained its reputation of being the gayest horror film of all time, Robert Englund claimed it was always meant to be a bisexual film. He attributed this to the 80s pre-AIDS paranoia. Now, I'm not saying there aren't moments of emphasis in this movie that clearly have a gay theme, but those moments involve Coach Schneider, the bar scene, and then, of course, his kill in the shower. The rest of it, though, I truly attribute that to 80s cheese. Jesse dancing around his room, for example, with the pop gun. His style, not all that different from Sam's in The Lost Boys, which would be released just a couple of years later. Even certain dialogue that people adamantly claim fits the theme. I'm sorry, but subtext or not, a lot of it seems like a reach for me. It's one of those situations where, yeah, you watch the movie now and you can see it, but I'm being completely honest here. Watching this in the 80s and 90s, I just didn't see it. Now, that's not to say that no one else may have seen it, but I just didn't watch movies that way. I wasn't concerned with movie characters and TV characters' sexuality. In fact, I'm still not. Unless it's pertinent to the story, it just doesn't matter to me. As a young male horror fan, I thought it was cool to have a final guy in an Elm Street film. Despite the movies Jason and I are reviewing this month for Monthly Theme Thursday, there are not all that many final guys in horror. Or at least I should say there are far more final girls. A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, however, gave us a final guy in what would go on to be one of the most popular horror franchises of all time. And not just a horror franchise, but a slasher franchise. Jesse is a slasher sequel final guy. I swear things really were different back then. I watched a movie to be entertained. Like I said, unless it had some sort of effect in the story, it just didn't matter. I wasn't watching it to dissect a character's sexuality. On top of that, Jesse has a girlfriend in the film, and I always thought Lisa was super cute. In the end, Freddy is literally defeated because she loves Jesse, and it's his love for her that frees him from Freddy's mind. Again, Mark Patton's real-life sexual preference is a moot point, because at the time, he was not out. Are people just basing their own personal views of his character on his mannerisms? Was it his voice? The way he screamed? I'm genuinely asking. Are people just looking too much into it? Is it because of Freddy using his body and then literally coming out of it? I mean, this isn't the only movie to ever do something like that. I really don't know. I guess I'm just unsure of what's offensive anymore and what isn't. I mean, we have Jesse Walsh, who is considered a gay horror character, but he wasn't even gay. I mean, there's nothing in the movie that confirms he is. Now, if his character was confirmed to be gay in the film, but people decided they wanted to call him a straight character, wouldn't that be considered bigoted? Ultimately, though, does it even matter? In this movie, Jesse is a high school boy with a high school girlfriend. Nothing else additional to that is confirmed. People are, of course, free to believe what they want. It's just like Scream. A lot of people consider Billy and Stu to be gay horror icons. I seriously saw it as Jesse, the final guy, being written with the same tropes as the typical slasher final girl. That's the point. I didn't jump to the conclusion that, oh, he must be gay. When you look at it like that, I think it all makes sense. I believe those were the creative decisions made by the director, the cast and crew were referencing. But obviously, everyone else can see it as they choose. Although I do still see it more as his character being written as a final guy with the tropes of a final girl. I just find it fascinating. It's an interesting topic. I watched A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 so many times growing up, and never once thought, hey, this is the gayest horror film of all time. And I never watched any horror films and thought, hey, this is the straightest horror film of all time, or the whitest horror film of all time, or the blackest horror film of all time. If a character was straight, fine. If a character was gay, cool. But now we seem to be living in a time when people want to put everything in certain categories like that. It's like how certain established movies are now being remade to fit into different categories. Imagine A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 being remade, but instead of Jesse being Jesse, they completely changed the character, removing any kind of subtext whatsoever. People probably wouldn't appreciate that. It goes both ways, though. Changing characters just for the sake of making them fit into a different category is not always a welcome change. At least, it shouldn't be. But that's a subject for another controversial view. For me, I always thought Jesse was a cool character. He was a great final guy in a great slasher sequel. I'm glad it has the infamy it does, because I love this movie, and it deserves the attention. If people are happy praising it as the gayest horror film of all time, that's great. I'm glad they love it, and I'm glad they feel it's a good representation of them. It's good that, no matter the reason, people appreciate it now. Unfortunately, there are still those who think this is one of the worst Elm Street sequels. But that's why Jason and I watched it, so you don't have to. This is just my controversial view. Please be sure to check out Jason's as well. What are your thoughts on A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge? Have you always considered it to be a gay horror movie? Or did you only start thinking that after others started saying it? Comment below and let me know. Believe me, it's not an insult or a judgment. I didn't see it at first, and now I can't unsee it. I always loved it regardless. I still just see Jesse as a final guy with the characteristics of a final girl. I think that's what the director was going for. One last thing. I know it's easy now to say, oh, of course I saw the subtext. But that's because we know now. It's been pointed out to us time and time again. I don't need anyone insulting me for not seeing it originally. But more importantly, I'm genuinely curious if you did. Or most importantly, did you see movies that way in general back then? That's it. Just please be respectful in the comments. This is just a friendly discussion. Which controversial movie will we cover next? Check back soon to find out. Until then, remember, physical media matters. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit that thumbs up and be kind. Subscribe.